Will come to order. The gentlelady from the great state of California is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I previously asked in this committee why the DOJ took down the NIJ's journal dedicated to domestic radicalization, violent extremism, and terrorism. In that journal, the DOJ research found that since 1990, far-right extremists have committed far more ideologically motivated homicides than far-left or radical Islamist extremists. And in spite of those facts, we held 2 hearings in this committee committed to Islamophobia, and not a week later, yet another act of deadly violence from the right occurred at a mosque in my home state. So before I begin, I'd like to respectfully ask our chairman, Mr. Chairman, will you commit to holding a hearing on the white nationalists who violently shot at the mosque this week in San Diego?
We will take that under consideration. We have a number of hearings scheduled and markup scheduled coming up here in the next week. We're looking to do something on Act Blue. We're looking to get the CEO of
Mr.
Southern
Chairman,
Poverty
I'm
Law
going
Center
to reclaim my time.
But he wouldn't agree to come yet.
So reclaim my time from you and hope that that long thing turns into a yes. But now I would like to talk about an organization which is and has been historically dedicated to stopping violence, the Southern Poverty Law Center, whose informant program has helped stop real acts of violence in this country. SPLC shared intelligence gathered from informants directly with law enforcement agencies, including the FBI and DOJ. That information helped stop a neo-Nazi from obtaining a security clearance and helped thwart a planned terrorist attack targeting a synagogue and an LGBTQ bar in Las Vegas. So, Mr. Tyler, if an organization helps stop a bomb attack, is that good or bad?
Well, of course it's good.
Okay, thank you. No, because I don't have a lot of time. Mr. Tyler, do you believe that law enforcement should ignore credible intelligence about violent extremist threats? Yes or no? Okay, thank you.
And the witness's name is Mr. O'Neill.
Oh, I apologize.
Thank you.
Because from where I sit, those answers sound like public safety work. Yet Republicans applauded when Kash Patel severed the FBI's information sharing relationship with SPLC. And I cannot find a single instance where SPLC's cooperation with law enforcement made Americans less safe. Maybe the real issue is simply SPLC has been effective at exposing white supremacist and extremist organizations for decades, organizations that Republicans either condone or deny exist at all. SPLC was founded during the Civil Rights Movement to fight racial terror and organized hate in the South, and for over 50 years, it has sued violent white supremacist organizations, monitored extremist groups, protected voting rights, and defended vulnerable communities. SPLC bankrupted factions of the KKK and fought racial intimidation campaigns. And recently they exposed abusive living conditions in juvenile detention centers and filed suit against school districts that failed to provide individualized services and reasonable accommodations for disabled students. How is that bad? And let's talk about transparency for a moment. Republicans are accusing SPLC of wrongdoing because it did not publicly disclose donor-by-donor payout maps tied to confidential informants. But nonprofits do not operate that way. Are Turning Point USA or Moms for Liberty publishing donor-by-donor payout audits? Because I can't seem to find them. And somehow Republicans want a completely different standard applied here. And the hypocrisy becomes even more obvious when you look at Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. Mr. Blanche publicly attacked SPLC over its confidential informant program while refusing to rule out taxpayer-funded payouts to January 6 rioters, including individuals convicted of assaulting police officers. So why is secrecy suddenly unacceptable when a civil rights organization uses confidential informants to stop violent extremism, but perfectly acceptable when this administration creates a $1.8 billion taxpayer-funded white reparations slush fund? Why are Republicans attacking SPLC while refusing to provide transparency about who could receive taxpayer-funded payouts tied to January 6th insurrectionists? This hearing has nothing to do with oversight and nothing to do with public safety. It is about intimidating organizations that challenge white supremacy, defend civil rights, and refuse to bend the knee to this administration. And Mr. Chair, as you know me, I have some there we go, my
The
friend.
gentlelady is recognized for unanimous consent request.
Thank you. The first one is the acting attorney general is facing bipartisan criticism about the DOJ's so-called anti-weaponization fund, 51926 Politico. I ask unanimous consent.
Without objection.
What we know about the San Diego mosque shooting victims, suspects, possible motive, and more.
Without objection.
Multiple Republicans in Congress post openly anti-Muslim statements.
Without objection.
The second wave, return of the militias.
Without objection.
Pentagon tightens ban on supremacist activity after years of denying problem.
Without objection.
SPLC, DOJ lawsuit, a wake-up call to end Mississippi's school-to-prison pipeline.
Without objection.
SPLC report reveals the high price of Florida's incarceration of Black children.
Without objection.
Fifth Circuit rules against unlawful debt collections targeting Hurricane Katrina survivors.
Without objection.
SPLC report overcoming the unprecedented Southern voters' battle against voter suppression, intimidation, and a virus.
Without objection.
SPLC announces new campaign, Poverty is Not a Line, during Poverty Awareness Month.
Okay. Without objection.
How the threat of political violence is transforming America.
Okay. Without objection.
And the last one, right-wing extremist violence is more frequent and deadly than left-wing violence.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I am looking forward to getting additional information
Yes,
on when
yes.
that possible hearing
And
can
just for the
happen.
record, Republicans aren't upset when the Southern Poverty Law Center labels racist organizations racist. We're upset when they label non-racist organizations, conservative organizations racist, and we're upset when they pay racists. That's why we're having the hearing. The gentleman from gentlelady is recognized, and the gentleman from South Carolina.
Thank you. The 11-count indictment of the Southern Poverty Law Center over wire fraud, false statements, and conspiracy to commit money laundering states that between 2014 and 2023, the SPLC covertly funneled more than $3 million in donated funds to individuals who were associated with several violent extremist groups, including the KKK, the National Socialist Movement, and the National Socialist Party of America. Because the SPLC was instigating rather than infiltrating these hate groups, donor money was seemingly being used to create and prop up the very hate that SPLC claimed to be fighting against. More hate means more money for the SPLC, and this led to a transformation of this corrupt and divisive group moving towards a creator of hate within America. There is a fundamental difference between federal law enforcement using paid informants and a nonprofit organization lying to financial institutions to compensate people to foment hate, racism, and anti-Semitism. The SPLC's field sources were doing much more than gathering information. For example, the indictment notes that one field source, quote, made racist postings under the supervision of the SPLC and helped coordinate transportation to the Charlottesville event for several attendees, end quote. Mr. O'Neill, do you believe that SPLC's conduct crossed the line from infiltrator to instigator?
Yes, based on the information in the indictment.
So in response to the indictment, we also found out that the SPLC was sharing information with law enforcement. I've got concerns about that because of how biased the SPLC obviously is, and the information that they were sharing with law enforcement was also biased. I think that you can tell that by the questioning, or at least the accusations that were just recently made, and even some of the articles that were identified by the woman from California. The articles themselves, even accusing the folks this week of committing the horrible act at the mosque out in San Diego. Their own writings defy and disagree with what she was alleging over there. Individuals on the right and left have long recognized that the SPLC is no longer the group that it was founded to be. Mr. O'Neill, shouldn't we be concerned that our government and law enforcement are accepting information from knowingly biased sources?
Yes, we should be concerned that they were receiving information specifically from a group that systematically demonizes concerned parents, conservative Christian groups, and even groups of LGBT people who oppose the sexualization of children.
So if the SPLC were instigating criminal action and then reporting such information to law enforcement, would that not raise even more legally dubious conflicts? Mr. Perkins.
It would. SPLC was it was like they were hiring an arsonist to create a fire. Then they were calling the fire department and ratting out the arsonist that they hired. And then they wanted to get
else. We're accusing someone else of setting the fire.
well, but they also wanted to get Citizen of the Year award by calling in and turning in the arsonist that they paid. It's a conspiracy that goes way beyond just money. This was about trying to demonize, silence, and completely eliminate any opposition to the left when it came to their agenda.
And that's what's played out, I think, today with the questioning in your testimony. But now we're finding out that the SPLC was not only engaged in this kind of behavior, but we have schools across the country that have included SPLC information in their curriculum. Dr. Swain, what are the concerns that you have in that regard?
I have concerns that the SPLC's program Teaching Tolerance is really intolerant, and many of the public and private schools use their materials, and because they have so many resources, they're able to get into the schools in a way that I think is very dangerous, because they're all about indoctrination, a very progressive agenda, and so that is my concern.
Okay, I appreciate that. I believe that this program, that it's the Learning for Justice is the community education program that I am referring to. Mr. O'Neill, do you have concerns about that program as well?
Yes, so it's very telling in my mind that the program that was long known as Teaching Tolerance, apparently the SPLC has become too woke for tolerance, so they changed the name to nix the tolerance and just go with Learning for Justice.
Okay, all right, interesting. Well, I'm just about out of time. I also have a unanimous consent.
This
This is an article from April 30th, 2026 from LifeSet News. The both sides political violence narrative completely debunked. They cooked the books. An example being that all claims of anti-Semitism, they claim are right-wing or conservative attacks, when we know that is absolutely not the case. They do not count what happened on 9/11. And there are many other examples in this particular article where they have absolutely cooked the books, that they claimed left-wing violence is right-wing, when we know that that isn't true. So they're even lying about that as well. So thank you, and I yield back.
Objection. The gentlelady also yields back. The chair now recognizes gentlelady from Vermont.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This president and his supporters in Congress want to turn the clock back. They're trying to undo the progress of the civil rights movement. That's what this is all about. This is about white nationalism and a direct attack on Black Americans in this country, and it comes from the very top. That's why we need groups like SPLC, because the president is systematically taking us back to the darkest chapters of American history. Rather than face accountability from the voters, he is fully embracing authoritarianism. Sham indictments against nonprofits are just one part of this plan. President Trump, his captured Supreme Court, and Republicans in this very room have supported attacks on law firms involved in civil rights litigation, dismantling the federal civil rights offices, weaponizing the DOJ to baselessly attack the president's enemies, gutting the Voting Rights Act. This is an effort to criminalize dissent. We're witnessing an intentional effort to intimidate any institution who will stand up for our rights, the rights of Americans. It's an intentional effort to silence Black voices and to undo our multiracial democracy. And the majority claims that the SPLC manufactures hate. Here's the hard truth. There is no reason that the SPLC has to manufacture hate in this country, because the Trump era has supplied plenty of it. White supremacy, Christian nationalism, violence against women, right-wing extremism, and bigotry against the LGBTQ community is flourishing. And the president just set up a corrupt slush fund to pay people who took up arms against our own government. Right now, hate is being cultivated, rewarded, and reinforced by those in power. Ms. Wiley, thank you for being here. How do these attacks on SPLC, the Justice Department, and the civil rights of Black Americans civil rights enforcement affect the civil rights of Black Americans?
Significantly. And I just want to share one story we haven't talked about, because the reality is Charles Morrell III, a Black man in Boston in 2022, was just walking down the street. The Patriot Front attacked him. The Patriot Front is listed on SPLC's heat map as a hate and extremist group. The importance of calling it out is so that Charles Murray III can walk down the street and be safe. And at a time when we're talking about schools and education and children and what happens within them, we see a broadside attack on even teaching history of slavery, history of the civil rights movement that took permission away from hate and extremism and said, this country, no matter your viewpoint, no matter your religion, no matter who you vote for, and no matter what you believe, is your country. That matters for all of us. And I say every American should be concerned, no matter who you are, if we whitewash hate.
I couldn't agree more, because we see every day when we turn on the news and we watch this president at press conferences, the bigotry and the hatred is coming from the top. It's a strategy. It's an electoral strategy, but it's also a cultural one. The way President Trump has routinely insulted and demeaned women and people of color has permeated this country. When he casually calls women reporters piggy and stupid and mouths the word bitch at a Black reporter. When he calls Haiti and African countries shithole nations. When he repeatedly and relentlessly spreads falsehoods about President Obama's birth certificate. It spreads the hate. As a former history teacher, I know there's going to be a reckoning. There will. And our children and our grandchildren will ask us where we stood, what we said, what we did when we had these microphones, when we had these platforms. They will ask us if we bowed down to a tyrant, to a bigot, to a man who spreads hate through his social media posts, through his appearances at press conferences. They will ask us this. And I will tell you, I know where I am. I'm standing with the people, and I'm standing with the Constitution. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from South Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, guys, I have a great idea. 2016, we raised $51 million. That's really good. But I think we can do better, right? I think we can do just a little bit better if we just invest in the same thing that we're perpetuating, or if we perpetuate the same thing that we're fighting against. So let's take, Mr. O'Neill, $3 million. Does that sound about right? If we take that little bit of money and send it to informants in white nationalist groups, I think we can I think we can double our money. Does that sound like a good business model?
I have a deal for you. I think it's only 270 to that particular Charlottesville informant.
Right. So I think that's a good investment, don't you? I think if a year from now,
grand, and
a year from now in 2017, I think we'll see the fruits of our labor. Is that kind of what happened?
According to the indictment, and I do need to preface according to the indictment because I haven't seen the underlying evidence, and of course this will work out in court. But according to the indictment, that's exactly what happened.
So we take this organization, the Southern Poverty Law Center, that has had, I'd say, tremendous success decades ago in eliminating racism in our country, in fixing laws, and seeing really a societal change in the way that we approach race and the way that we deal with race. And they were doing pretty good in 2016 and even before. But isn't that just crazy? I mean, Ms. Hageman talked about this a second ago, but we're perpetuating the problem and funding the problem that we're eliminating, right? I mean, this is a division for dollars racket. Is that a fair characterization, at least according to the indictment?
Well, and that's why I wrote this book in 2020, years before the indictment, because I saw it when they put good people like Tony Perkins' organization, Family Research Council, on the hate map. I've been screaming from the rooftops about this for years. So when the indictment comes out, I say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I want to set a few, if you don't mind, I want to set a few things straight. The Southern Poverty Law Center wasn't founded until 1971. A lot of people in this room have been saying that it's a civil rights organization started in the middle of the civil rights movement. It was started toward the end of it. They were almost ambulance chasing. I mean, and forgive me on this, but when they sued the Klan, their own lawyers said that suing the Klan was like shooting fish in a barrel. And their own lawyers quit because they said Morris Dees was so focused on suing the Klan to make money by going to donors because he knew donors cared about this, that they were drifting away from their original mission, which, by the way, wasn't fighting white supremacy, but was representing poor people in the South with legal representation, which is a noble mission. And I pray to God that they turn every effort that they have demonizing conservatives toward that effort, because that effort is noble. And by the way, groups on the hate map, good conservative groups that provide legal representation to people who can't afford it, are demonized by the SPLC for doing exactly what the SPLC
So Mr. Perkins, real quick, if the SPLC puts on their hate map a neo-Nazi group, that's kind of their mission, right? There's no objection to that, probably not. The transparency, I think, actually helps to eliminate groups like that. Would you agree?
Yes.
So you're on the same list as a neo-Nazi group, and that's not really a fair characterization, is it?
No. They
And
need
Moms
this-
for Liberty too. I mean, their only crime, I think, is being involved in their child's education, right?
right, being moms.
Being moms.
So what they
That's
need.
apparently a white supremacist thing, right? Like, I don't understand this logic, but we are taking an entity and using an idea that we're going to go grow our influence in the Biden administration, in government. They're going to meet with us on a quarterly basis. We're going to go after people. It became, I think, and maybe this is fair to characterize, but the SPLC went from maybe an altruistic entity at its inception, on a good day, to really a racket of let's go grow our influence, let's balloon our fundraising. I mean, what's their foundation right now? $700 million? Is it fair to characterize the mission creep of the SPLC in that way, sir?
Congressman Fry, it's more insidious than that. They needed the white supremacist group so that they could marginalize and demonize moms and groups that adhere to biblical teaching. They needed those groups. That's why they're propping them up. This was not about money. This was about, Charlottesville was about coalescing corporations behind their initiative to marginalize and demonize conservatives so the left could march forward. It's much more insidious than what, this is like Al Capone. Does anybody believe that it was just tax evasion? Come on, he was a criminal. He killed, he murdered.
And you use that to justify your existence. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Florida, which are we going?
No, I was just going to note, they were 36 seconds over, and I think Ms. Crockett needs to catch an airplane, so she could go
Gentleman
first.
from Texas, then we'll come to the gentleman from Florida.
Well. It is so hard to sit here and listen to this. That's one reason I watched the majority of this and didn't actually sit in this room, because I'm sure my faces would have told everything that I was thinking. Is there anyone that finds it odd? Well, can we start here? I'm gonna start with the entire panel. Are the Proud Boys a white supremacist organization? Yes or no? Starting with Ms. Wiley.
It is my view they are.
It depends on how you define it. I have a book.
Okay, never mind.
It
Next.
depends on how you
It's a
define
yes
it.
or no. Proud
Oh.
Boys, how they define themselves. Are they white supremacists? Yes or no?
I have not read a description of how they
Okay,
define themselves.
that's fine.
I'm not on their mailing list, I don't know.
So are you only on the mailing list of?
I'm not
White
like the
supremacists,
SPLC. I don't
or-
fund organizations that I'm
Oh,
against.
it just seemed like you were saying because you haven't received their mail, you only received the mail of white supremacists. But go ahead, last witness.
No, they're not white supremacists.
And you know what? I do believe that y'all believe that. Let's try another one. Neo-Nazis, Miss Wiley.
Well, yes.
Nazis is in their name. Neo-Nazis, Dr. Swain.
Is the question still about the Proud Boys, or is it about the
Neo-Nazis. We have
Neo-Nazi-
moved on. Neo-Nazis.
neo-Nazis are hate groups? And I have a book, 2002.
Okay, thank you so much.
about
So we're
hate
gonna-
groups
so-
that I suggest that you all read.
I'm reclaiming
It's a
my
long
time.
book.
I'm reclaiming my time. Neo-Nazis. Are they white supremacists?
Neo-Nazis, are they white supremacists?
Yes or no?
What's that?
Yes or
They're
no?
certainly anti-Semitic, which I would join with any member of the Democratic Party. Mr. Nadler earlier was talking about standing up
Okay,
for the Jewish.
reclaiming my
people.
time.
Be happy to
Next.
do that.
Yes, they're white supremacists.
Woo, thank God. Jesus
they are.
Christ, I didn't think we were going to get there. Oh my gosh, let me be clear. Proud Boys are freaking white supremacists. Neo-Nazis are too. And this president, who loves to coddle white supremacists, has decided that they should be given checks. The reasons that I pointed to those particular organizations is because you can go and read, I don't know how many articles, as Dr. Swain wants people to read up. I'm going to be clear. I've read my fair share of books. I do have my fair share of degrees. It is clear that neo-Nazis as well as Proud Boys joined in on January 6th. Yet this slush fund that they keep talking about is specifically to give them money. So how dare this majority sit here and try to lecture this organization about money? Now, we're not talking about tax-paying dollars as we are in that slush fund. But you're telling me that $2 billion in the same country that I'm sure some of y'all would struggle with whether or not the enslavement of Black people was good or bad. I'm not even going to go there and ask y'all the question because y'all struggle with defining that these people were white supremacists. But this country still hasn't thought that reparations made sense for Black folk in this country. But at the same time, they've decided that people that are in organizations that are absolutely white supremacy organizations should get our tax dollars because they decided to tear apart or attempt to tear apart our democracy. They are being rewarded. These are people that went through our criminal justice system. When people on that side of the aisle claim that they love law and order, they went through it. They either entered pleas of guilty or they were found guilty. And this president, on day one, his priority was not around racism. It was around doing things like letting them go and now putting money in their pockets. We haven't had one hearing on white supremacy. Yet when we look at things like the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the 9 worshipers who were murdered at the Mother Emanuel AME Church, the 23 people murdered in 2019 during the shooting at Walmart in El Paso, the 10 people murdered during the 2022 shooting at a grocery store in Buffalo, New York. All of these were murdered by white supremacists who are empowered by the Republican Party's racist rhetoric and policies. This is the same party that wants to drag us back to the Jim Crow era. Some say that there aren't poll taxes, and I guess it's because they're not listing the amount of money. But when you tell somebody that they've got to go and pay for something, say, like a passport that costs over $100 in order to be able to vote, that looks like a poll tax to me. Some of y'all need to read up on your history books, the very same ones that the Republicans have decided that people should not hear about because you don't want real history taught in our schools because you're afraid that it's going to hurt people's feelings to know that their ancestors were so savage that they would enslave Black folk. You don't want them to understand why the 14th Amendment mattered then and it matters today. You don't want them to understand that when they draw these racist lines and tell Black folk that they shouldn't have representation in this country, that it is against the Constitution.
Time of the
You want them to
gentlelady.
be ignorant
The
so that
time
they
of
can
the-
sit up here and be
The
your
time of the
token
gentle
for
lady
your
has
mission.
expired. Well, you can't yield because you've done run out of time. But it looks like the ranking member wants to make a unanimous consent request.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Walmart gunman attacked El Paso because that's what his president was telling him his defense attorney says. I'd like to introduce that for the record.
Without objection. Democrats talked about a slush fund. I would just point out, was it a slush fund when Peter Strzok got $1.2 million from the Garland Justice Department? Was it a slush fund when Lisa Page got 800,000? You know, Peter Strzok's the guy that said, I'm in the Northern Virginia Walmart. I can smell the Trump supporters. And the Biden Justice Department gave him $1.2 million. Gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Wiley, I want to talk to you about the Charles Morrell case that you mentioned earlier. You said it happened where?
Boston,
In Boston?
Massachusetts. Yes, sir.
And he was attacked by whom?
The Patriot Front.
The Patriot Front. The SPLC did not give the Patriot Front any money. Is that correct?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
And how was he attacked? And pardon me, I'm just not familiar with this case.
The Patriot Front was, had a march that they were engaged in without a permit, and he was attacked on the street.
Was he killed or just assaulted or?
I don't know that it matters if we're talking about a hate crime, which is what we're talking about.
I'm just trying to get the details, ma'am, and I'm leading up to this. Would you be willing to condemn the local leaders' efforts to defund the police? Because I agree with you. We should have safe streets.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite.
Will you condemn Boston's local leaders from trying to defund the police? They did that in their recent budget proposal.
This is, I don't live in Boston. What I will say is this was a
You think that
hate crime,
defunding the police helps or
and
hurts public safety?
The question I think that I was asked to come speak to was the rise of hate
Right.
and the critical importance of us addressing and protecting civil rights.
Well, you said
there's a
earlier that you
Ku Klux
respect
Klan-
Mr. Murrell's right to a free street. So I'm asking you, will you condemn the local leaders' efforts to defund the police?
I will not make any comment about
Okay.
local decisions.
What
in
about
Boston.
Mayor Wu's policy of offering sanctuary to people here illegally, regardless of their criminal history? Will you condemn that?
No,
So it seems like your qualification on public safety is very limited, correct?
no, I'm just
I think it
here-
is. I think it
I'm just
is.
here on a
In
hate
regards,
crime.
well, let's talk about the hate crimes. In terms of the neo-Nazis, I actually agree with just about every word that Jerry Nadler said. I'm working on a bill to promote safe places of worship, increase penalties for attacks on worshipers. And neo-Nazism is certainly on the rise. You would agree with that?
I would.
Anti-Semitism, attacks against Jews, Christians, members of other faiths, it's on the rise.
It is.
Do you know why it's on the rise?
Well, I think that's why we've been so concerned about the cuts to grants and programs that are helping us understand the rise and exactly why we have young men like we saw in San Diego
Yep.
murder 3 men at a mosque.
Are you
And
concerned at
while
all?
we're concerned about the attacks on the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is also seeking to
I
help us
agree.
better
Do
understand.
you find it at all problematic that one of the leading candidates for United States Senate proudly commissioned and displayed a Nazi tattoo on his chest for almost 20 years? Does that concern you?
I don't know who you're referring to. I would only say that anti-Semitism, neo-Nazism, hate always concerns me.
Would you condemn that in that candidate?
And
He's a United States Senate candidate who proudly wore a Nazi tattoo right on his chest.
Well, certainly I don't agree with any support of neo-Nazism.
Now, I'm detecting a little bit of, it seems like viewpoint and partisan bias from the SPLC. Mr. Perkins, I want to talk to you a little bit about this. Do you know why there is such fervent resistance, or I would say fervent hatred for traditional viewpoints, for Christians, for people like yourself?
I do, because we have a fixed view of marriage, of human sexuality, and that stands in the way of the left's ideological push to transgender our children and to redefine marriage. And so in order to shut us up, knock us off the media, defund us, they have to label us
Right.
alongside of these racist groups.
Right. Ms. Wiley, do you think that biblical values are extreme?
I don't even understand the question, sir. I'm
Very
sorry.
simple. Do you believe that biblical values are extreme?
I believe that people have the right
Sure.
to have their beliefs, including their interpretations of religion, whatever their religion is.
Is Mr. Perkins' belief in traditional biblical values what brought him to the forefront of the SPLC's hate group map?
I can't speak for the SPLC's
You are today.
decision. I am here to speak about hate and bias. And
Do you
what I
think
am
that
here to
belief
say
in biblical
is
values promotes hate and bias?
that is way too broad a question
Well,
to
I'm
answer.
asking
What I'm very clear on is that we have a constitution that
Sure.
protects First Amendment rights, including freedom of religion. We support that as a civil rights community that includes almost every faith and,
Yep.
and an interfaith alliance.
Well, I know, let me
frankly-
just stop you there. I know Dr. Swain well. She's a scholar. She's independent. She's very well thought out. Why was she listed as someone to be concerned about?
I'm here because we're talking about hate. I do not engage in the
Is she a hateful
designations.
person?
I don't know her.
You're on behalf of the SPLC.
I'm on behalf of civil rights, the leadership
Is
conference.
she
on Civil and
anti-civil
Human
rights?
I don't know her.
Well, I'm over my time, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, could we just clarify Ms. Wiley's organizational identification? I think there's some confusion here.
I am the president and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, which is the nation's oldest and largest civil rights coalition of almost 250 national organizations.
Gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to go back really quick to the questioning by Ms. Crockett, just because I thought it was actually an easy line of questioning, and I want to give everyone an opportunity just to clarify. Ms. Swan, the neo-Nazis are a supremacist group, right? I know you talked about your book, but
May I
neo-Nazis are a supremacist group.
May I define a white supremacist? Because I did a Cambridge University Press book,
Okay.
and
You
when
keep-
I
you
did
keep-
my research,
you're doing- I know, but Ms. Swan, I got to be honest, you're doing what the university professors did with Elise Stefanik, talking about, well, what's the definition of this and what's
No,
it?
I'm giving you a definition
but
because
neo-
you all don't have one.
No, the neo-Nazis are a supremacist group. They believe they're supreme, right? That's why they wanted to put people in camps that they believed were not pure. Neo-Nazis are a supremacist group, right? I mean, this is not a trick question, Ms. Swan. I'm not trying to trip you up in the fact that
I
you're.
would like to define a white supremacist, and when I did my research, it was white people who believed that because of their race, they were superior to other groups. But the left redefined white supremacists so that it could include any white person in this
Okay,
room,
Ms. Swan, hold
including
on.
you all.
That's a wonderful speech and a filibuster.
No, it's true.
Are neo-Nazis supremacists?
It depends on which ones. They're
No,
individuals.
I didn't
Some of
ask
them-
you. I didn't ask you which ones.
Some of them are plain old
neo-Nazi. Ms. Swan, listen, I'm not reading your book if you literally can't answer this question. Are neo-Nazis supremacists?
They're individuals. Some are, and some may be just plain old anti-Semites.
No. Neo-Nazis are anti-Semites, okay? We're going to agree there.
Right, okay.
But they're also supremacists, Ms. Swan.
Okay, if you agree.
No. You don't have to take my word for it, right? Like, they are. That's the whole reason they exist.
But you
because
all
they
don't seem
believe
to-
they are supreme.
You all don't seem to understand that a white
Who's they all?
supremacist
I'm not a
until
neo-Nazi.
redefined.
Who's they all? I'm a regular person asking another regular person
Okay.
if we can agree that neo-Nazis are
Okay,
supremacists.
I will agree with you.
Okay, I don't want you to be forced into it.
I would agree with you, but I suggest you all take the time and read my Cambridge University Press book
Listen,
that was nominated for
Ms.
a
Swan,
Pulitzer
listen,
Prize.
Dr. Swan, I can promise you there's no freaking way I'm buying your book. When it took 2 minutes for you to look at me and had to convince you that neo-Nazi, listen,
Because I don't like the talking points. The leftist
this is not a talking point. This is 100 years of history. Watch this. I'm going to show you how easy it is. Mr. Perkins, are neo-Nazis supremacists?
They are supremacists.
Thank you, sir. Mr. O'Neill.
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Swan, that wasn't a trick question for them. I wasn't trying to trip them up. I wasn't using DNC talking points. This is part of the problem. And I didn't even want to do this, quite frankly, because I'm not interested in making this stuff political, right? I got Democratic candidates in Texas coming out yesterday and saying that Jews belong in concentration camps again. Okay.
terrible.
Like we're in real bad
I
times.
agree.
And so if we put these hateful conversations in our political box and we do the whataboutism, this is just going to continue to spread hate.
I agree with 100%. We agree.
Right. And that's why we got to be able to at least agree to a simple set of facts that neo-Nazis are supremacists. right? Okay, we've moved on. We've moved on. You're there.
But you all use white supremacists as a broad statement. It doesn't
I
apply to
didn't,
every white person.
listen, I didn't say anything other than they're supremacists,
Okay,
and they are.
I apologize to you, sir.
Okay, no, you don't have to apologize to me. I just want you to understand, like, if we can't agree on a simple set of facts, then we can't solve real problems. So, Mr. Chairman, this obviously was a specific topic that you had scheduled a couple weeks ago and invited these witnesses in. But I got to be honest, like the last week, the amount of anti-Semitic messages, voicemails, text messages I have gotten, stuff on my social media, an assassination plot, a couple months ago, someone serving 25 years in jail, and now watching someone running for office trying to join the greatest deliberative body ever created on this planet, who thinks the way forward for America is to look at 1940s Germany. Okay, my grandmother was part of the kinder transport out of Germany. Her parents died at Auschwitz. My kids are not going to an internment camp, I can assure you. And it's becoming so normalized. It is, we've gone from, there's Americans who donate to elected officials, that are AIPAC, and then it's, okay, Netanyahu, and then it's, okay, maybe we shouldn't support foreign money, and then, okay, now we're going to call these people Zionists, and now we're at concentration camps. By the way, we got the concentration camps much faster than I thought we would get, but here we are. And it's real scary. People are scared. People don't want to show their Jewish stars anymore. They're moving into neighborhoods just to be around other Jews because they're concerned. And one of my Republican colleagues, and I know I'm over, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to wrap it up. One of my Republican colleagues asked, do we know why it's spreading? Hate, all sorts of hate, not just anti-Semitism. This is why it's spreading. It's all here. It's really here. Go poll young kids versus seniors. It's a dramatic difference in the amount of hate young kids have versus seniors. This is the difference. You're seeing it in voting patterns. You're seeing it in belief systems. We've let foreign governments and bots just totally weaponize this. No countries can beat us militarily. We're stronger than everyone combined. But they are gotten us fighting amongst ourselves, dividing us at each other's throats. So if you ask me why things are so bad, I mean, just spend a couple minutes, go to my Twitter, go look at some happy things, like a happy Veterans Day or happy Memorial Day that I posted. Look at the hate I get. It is out of control. So, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you doing this hearing in general, but real hate is spreading in this country in ways that my grandparents, they're gone. But I can't imagine if they were alive to see what was going on here. I yield back. Thank you for the extra time, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I appreciate what the gentleman said. And one of the things I have personally made a commitment to do is keep it out of our party, the party I belong to. And I know you are doing unbelievable amount of work trying to keep it out of your party. The once great party of FDR and JFK, we're seeing things there that are just not healthy for this great nation. And I'm committed to doing everything I can to make sure it doesn't get involved in the Republican Party. And I appreciate your words because it is scary, very scary. The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have to say I agree with a lot of what my colleague, Mr. Moskowitz, just said. And I think it is a lot of the hatred and division is driven by social media, by this, especially since COVID. And I believe our foreign adversaries in many times are intervening, and I believe the algorithms are driving our young people particularly into more and more extreme views, and that's sowing social division, and that is not good for anyone other than our foreign adversaries. But Mr. Chairman, thank you for holding this committee. It is truly astounding to me the lengths to which the Southern Poverty Law Center has gone to preserve its relevance. And I think it's telling that at this, our second hearing about the Southern Poverty Law Center, my Democrat colleagues have not called someone from SPLC to defend themselves. In fact, the previous Democrat witness, very similar to the witness today, just over and over again, well, I don't speak for the SPLC. Well, why are you here then? Look, an organization that was ostensibly committed to advancing civil rights should strive to make its own intervention less necessary by encouraging productive dialogue and fostering equal treatment under the law, rather than continually framing disagreements through the lens of racial animosity. If the SPLC were serious about dismantling hate, it would not be funding it, nor would it be engaging in conduct that promotes division for institutional or political gain. Mr. O'Neill, is it a common practice? You've written a lot about nonprofit organizations or NGOs. Is it a common practice for NGOs to channel money through intermediaries, entities in ways that obscure the ultimate recipient or purpose of those funds?
Yes, to some degree. There is dark money funding through, and this happens on both the right and the left.
Sure.
You have groups like 1630 Fund and the Tides Foundation that seem set up to hide which donors are funding which projects.
Okay. And are there legal or ethical issues with this? This, I don't know, money laundering, if you will?
That's a complicated question.
Yeah.
It is not money laundering.
Yes.
There is a very important First Amendment right established and upheld through NAACP v. Alabama and most recently AFP v. Bonta that Americans have the right to give to causes they believe in.
Yeah.
That said, there are questions about this cloaking of dark money. What is not covered in this is lying to a bank by saying you established an account for one purpose and then using it for another.
Yes. Okay. Does the SPLC reveal what the criteria or metrics are to determine which organizations or individuals are included in their hate map?
They claim to, yes. They have
Because when
very
I look,
weaselly language. They
Yes.
say when a group vilifies other people, typically by their immutable characteristics, but they use the word typically
Yes.
because they have anti-immigrant hate groups.
yes.
And so your immigration status is not an immutable
So
characteristic.
FAIR, Center for Immigration Studies.
Correct.
I've studied their work quite a bit, and all I see is a desire to enforce federal immigration law, but somehow that makes you a hate group. Well, let's go to someone right here. Dr. Swain, are you an apologist for white supremacists?
I don't think so. I try to stand up for all Americans. I believe in the Civil Rights Act and the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. It applies to all races. And in America, we should not be discriminating for or against any group.
So you have a dream that someday your young children would be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the quality of their character.
Yes.
I don't know. I think if someone says something like that, they would be labeled a hate group by the SPLC, maybe.
Probably.
Probably. I think you said it very, very well, Dr. Swain, that rather than monitoring hate groups, the Southern Poverty Law Center has become one.
And that was 2009. And I had been a Democrat all of my life. And so at that time, I was about ready to make a transition, but
So that was 2009.
Yes.
In the last
2009.
17 years, has anything changed your mind about SPLC?
I was ahead of my time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Yields back, gentleman from New York. Oh, okay, sure. We'll go to the gentleman from Wisconsin.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. O'Neill, I wanted to talk a little bit about this, the hate map concept, but isn't it true Southern Poverty Law Center began as a public interest law firm?
Correct.
Yeah. And it actually, as a member of the state legislature, we had some issues in which Southern Poverty Law Center had weighed in on. So I was familiar with the group before this latest set of issues made us kind of more aware of what's going on internally. But when did the organization start to kind of stray from that original mission or that original course?
So it's straight from that course in at least two ways and two time periods. The first was in the 1980s when the lawyers all quit because they said that Morris Dees took the organization in a direction of fighting the Klan instead of representing poor people in the South. And then the more recent time was really starting in the late 1990s, but ramping up by 1,000% in 2010 when they had their hate map and they started going after conservative organizations.
So let's talk about the hate map. So first of all, can you explain the hate map?
Yes, this is a map. The SPLC is best known for suing Klan groups into bankruptcy. And so they had a program called Klan Watch. They expanded it to Hate Watch because they ran out of grand dragons to slay. And not to say that white supremacy doesn't exist anymore in America. There are some isolated groups, but by and large, not enough to justify the sort of money that the SPLC gets. And they have this map that's supposed to, and in their words, they say it reveals the infrastructure upholding white supremacy in America today. And this map now includes social conservative organizations like the Family Research Council, Moms for Liberty. It includes now Turning Point USA, PragerU. It includes Alliance Defending Freedom. It includes the Center for Immigration Studies, the Federation for American Immigration. I mean, I could just go down the list. And it also includes a group of LGBT people who oppose sexualized lessons for children in schools.
So
they call that group an anti-LGBTQ hate group.
So is it too far to say there's no left-wing groups on the hate map?
There are a few left-leaning groups on the hate map, but nowhere near, like, the overall bias is very clear against the right. They don't have Antifa. They don't have Jane's Revenge. They do have the new Black Panther Party, I believe, which they always reference when they're asked this question. But by and large, the hate map is solely, well, not solely, but by and large targeted on conservative organizations.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Perkins, do you think the Southern Poverty Law Center is intentionally trying to draw a distinction between you and these kind of legitimate hate groups? Do you think they're trying to maybe
They're trying to conflate
them? Yeah.
They use those organizations to marginalize and demean legitimate conservative Christian organizations.
Do you think they're purposely diverting money from your organization and reducing your operations, or do you think that's a target?
That was a part of their broader conspiracy with financial platforms and banks to debank us and other organizations to keep us from being able to get funds from donor advised funds. Yes. So they're trying to bankrupt conservative groups.
Can I ask you further, did they have any success in that adventure?
Yes,
that
they did.
launched? Okay. The last thing I would say is, you have relationship with, if there is, with corporate donations? Is there any linkage between kind of what they were doing to suppress further corporate donations to their organization or to you? Either way.
I think most of the work was with corporations that had platforms or financial corporations that, like PayPal, that would facilitate funding to conservative groups. Most corporations were not giving to conservative groups directly, so they were intermediates. They were the vehicles through which people would donate to conservative organizations.
Yeah, so it wasn't about the ideology of the corporation. It was more about how they facilitated the actual movement of funds.
Well, I would say some of them willingly went along. Others were pressured by the SPLC using their government connections. And I think some in the tech world have suggested that there were threats about regulators, like in the banking industry.
Yeah.
So I think they use threats and bullying tactics.
Thank you very much. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Yes, I seek unanimous consent to introduce an article from May 8th, 2026, from The Intercept, which is entitled "Big Finance Might Be Dooming the SPLC Even Before Its Day in Court," describing how some of these larger financial institutions have been blocking donor-advised fund donations to the SPLC.
Objection.
Thank you.
Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the hate map, you don't like it. I get it. But the SPLC is not a government organization. And we have the First Amendment. So they're free to put what they want. And you, all of you, are free to speak out against it and to explain why they're wrong. But as I think of my Republican colleagues, we believe in the First Amendment, except, I guess, when it's critical of far-right groups or conservative groups who support these Republicans. But you are not free to use the government to criminally indict an organization based on a completely bogus charge. And I want to dig into this indictment. On April 21st, hours after Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche and the FBI Director Kash Patel announced this indictment, Mr. Blanche went on Fox and said this.
No information that we have that suggests that the money that they were paying to these informants and these members of these organizations, they then turned around and shared what they learned with law enforcement. To the contrary, or else we would have known from their own words that they had given this money to these guys, and we didn't know it.
So they had no idea that the SPLC was using informants and providing information to the government. 5 days later, Mr. Blanche was forced to acknowledge that that was a false statement. In fact, it was in a document filed by the Department of Justice where he said it is true, he went on TV and said it is true that over the years they have selectively shared information with law enforcement. That's well documented and no dispute, but they aren't charged with any of that conduct. What the hell does that mean, they aren't charged with any of that conduct? The entire premise of this fraud scheme is that SPLC was actually using the money given by the donors to support the hate groups, not to dismantle them as they represented. So any knowledge by the government that the SPLC shared information with them to dismantle these groups completely undermines and defeats the fraud claim. But there's plenty of evidence that the FBI knew that the information provided to them by the SPLC to help the FBI dismantle these groups came from informants. In fact, 2 weeks before the indictment, the SPLC presented the U.S. Attorney's Office with evidence that showed that they had been sharing information from informants with the FBI dating back to 2018. And even Blanche's statement that none of the information shared with the FBI was charged in the indictment is false. It doesn't matter because that's not what the fraud claim is, but it is false because the Charlottesville Unite the Right movement is specifically mentioned in the indictment. But the indictment does not mention the 45-page report that the SPLC sent to multiple FBI offices before the Unite the Right event that included information from their informants. Now, we've established that. Now we know this fraud claim is completely bogus, but it gets worse because it's not even part of the allegations. In paragraph 19 of the indictment, it explains the fraud scheme. It says that the SPLC represented to the victim donors that their money would be used to help dismantle violent extremist groups, but that they did not tell those donors exactly how they would do that. So it actually charges fraud by omission, not misrepresentation. But in order to have fraud by omission, you must prove that the omission was material to the victims such that they would have acted differently if they had known about it. But there isn't a single allegation in the indictment that any donor would not have donated if they knew about the payments to informants. In fact, everything we know is the opposite. Ms. Wiley has pointed out repeatedly about how donors are trying to continue to give. And that Intercept article that Ranking Member Raskin introduced cites 20 donors who now say that they either knew about the paid informants or they would have made their donations anyway. And so what is this really about? It is weaponizing and politicizing the Department of Justice, not any of your groups to quash and squash free speech, to muzzle people that because you are trying to protect far-right investigations who are huge supporters of the Republican Party. They may not do any oversight over this indictment, but I guarantee you when we take the majority back in January, we will be doing that oversight and they will be held accountable. I yield back.
Gentleman is back. Gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for holding this hearing, and thank you to the witnesses for taking the time to be here and testify before us. We certainly really appreciate that and appreciate your expertise. Ms. Wiley, I have a couple of questions for you. Do you still believe in defunding the police?
I believe in public safety, and that means driving dollars to where we're most likely to prevent crimes from happening and ensure that we have responsive law enforcement that doesn't violate people's rights and it prevents crime.
Does that mean driving dollars away from law enforcement?
It means making sure we're driving dollars to the things that support public safety, and that's a
possibly away from
variety
law
of
en-
things.
So possibly away from law enforcement.
Well, I think we have law enforcement. We have talked about the need for law enforcement, particularly when we're fighting hate and bias crimes, which
I
have
agree. We
more
certainly
than doubled
do
in this
need law
country since
enforcement.
2015.
Law enforcement's
So I think
very important. During your mayoral race a few years ago, you said, quote, "I'm going to take $1 billion from New York City Police Department." Do you still think that's a good idea?
Well, I'm here to talk about hate crimes, not my run
just asking
for
if that's-
city.
if- I'm
I
asking from a
stand by my
public's-
run for mayor, and I
you
appreciate
stand
the
by that statement.
opportunity
You also
to try to
stated-
drive dollars
You also
to
stated
public
you
safety.
have to cut the police budget and change what we mean by policing. Do you still stand by that statement as well?
I stand by the need to invest in community safety, to ensure that
by
we have a
defunding the
vibrant
police.
civil rights community that is able to participate in
I just want to
keeping
be
our
clear.
community
You
safe
believe in
from hate and
investing in
bias.
community safety by defunding the police?
I am here to say that I'm really grateful we have the Southern Poverty Law Center because it is doing work, including with law
And you think that
enforcement,
defunding the police
prevent
makes our community
hate and
safer?
bias
Okay,
crimes.
I've got another question for you. What is a black job?
You'd have to ask Donald Trump.
I'm not sure what that means. I'm referring to a statement that you made a year ago on your LinkedIn. "I was so honored and proud to be a New York State delegate for our next president, with Vice President Kamala Harris ascending to her black job."
Donald Trump made a comment that was very stereotypical about black people, and it was a
Is that
joke about his stereotypical statement about black
What is a
people.
black job?
You'll have to ask Donald Trump.
I have to ask, well, Donald Trump's not on the witness stand. So
Well,
asking
and
you.
I'm here to talk about hate crime, which I hope you want to talk about as
If the
well.
gentleman will
Hillary
yield, I
Clinton-
can clarify that.
No, I'd like to hear from the witness, but I appreciate it. Could Hillary Clinton have filled that black job? What you call
You'd
a
have
black
to
job?
ask Donald Trump.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Dr. Swain, got a couple questions for you. And thank you again for being here. In your book, The New White Nationalism, which is excellent, you wrote that in 2002, there were approximately 2,000 KKK members in the entire nation. Sounds like you believe a large portion of them were paid informants. Do you think that the SPLC was involved back in 2002? If you can turn the mic on, please.
There was a scholar named Larry Wilcox
Mhm.
that I referenced, and he did research, and he was very critical of the Southern Poverty Law Center. And he said at one point that there were more paid informants than actually KKK members. And I would concede that the Southern Poverty Law Center was very successful as far as bankrupting the neo-Nazis and the KKK. So I would concede that, but I will also argue that as early as 2009, when I wrote the article that triggered the Southern Poverty Law Center, at that time, the new Black Panther Party was patrolling the polls, I think in Philadelphia, and they were intimidating white people, and they had sticks in their hands, and the Southern Poverty Law Center had not labeled them as a hate group. And so in the blog, where I ended with, instead of monitoring hate groups, the Southern Poverty Law Center has become one. Instead of labeling or listing the new Black Panther Party, what they did, they went after Lou Dobbs and they went after the Center for Immigration Studies and anyone who questioned liberal immigration policies.
Mhm. And we've got about 15, 20 seconds left. Can you just, to sort of close us out, what are the dangers of paying for these informants and extremist groups like the KKK?
You get biased information if you're paying people for information. And one of the dangers for our society is that the Southern Poverty Law Center has pretty much become an arm of the Democratic Party. They are very partisan. They should not have that 501c3 status if they're going to take a side in, if they're going to be biased in how they monitor groups and how they destroy individuals like me.
Thank you, Dr. Swain.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, could I just do one UC?
That's what I'm doing.
I think they both want. Okay,
Oh,
go ahead.
so sorry. This is in direct answer to the gentleman from Texas question. New York Times, what's a black job? Trump's anti-immigration remarks are met with derision. Trump accused immigrants of stealing black jobs during Thursday's debate, prompting criticism from Democrats and other social media users. So I'm glad to see that the gentleman's on our side. Thank you very much.
Gentleman from New York is recognized.
I have another unanimous consent motion to enter into the record an April 17th letter from the attorneys for the SPLC 4 days before the indictment, where the organization reminded him of his obligation as a federal prosecutor to inform the grand jury of information that negates evidence of wrongdoing by SPLC, of which there is much.
Without objection. Chair now recognizes gentleman from Washington.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and our distinguished panelists. I don't know what happened to the Southern Poverty Law Center. I know growing up in the inland Northwest in Eastern Washington, I had some fond, at least favorable memories toward the Southern Poverty Law Center when we had an Aryan Nations compound in the Coeur d'Alene area. And it resonated with me that the SPLC had played a role in getting those folks out of our communities, and it was generally viewed upon favorably. So I don't know how it went from that organization to what I think today could be accurately described as an almost militant, weaponized arm of a progressive Marxist political project here in the United States. So I guess, Mr. O'Neill, I'm sure you're familiar with the phrase "jump the shark" and Happy
Yes.
Days when Fonzie jumped over the shark, and certainly the show went downhill from there.
Yeah.
And you spoke about the quest to start to focus on raising money from SPLC, but how did this organization again go from doing some good work against real racists like the Aryan Nations to suddenly targeting people trying to exercise their First Amendment rights and care about kids like Moms for Liberty? Where's that process?
Yeah, the answer to that question is long and complicated, and that's what my book was trying to do. But so first, there was Morstees, who was a consummate fundraiser, and he decided to take the SPLC in that suing the Klan direction. And the lawyers said it was like shooting fish in a barrel. But I think the real answer to your question, the substantive answer, is that we've seen on the left this ideological drift where it used to be that they would stand for your right to disagree and speak openly. And now it is as though if you disagree with anything that the left says, you must be a vile racist hater. Like this has always been a little bit of the rhetoric, but it got supercharged after 2020. And one of the reasons why Moms for Liberty is on the hate map is because many people on the left seem to work themselves into a lather and think that America is still systemically racist. And critical race theory is so deeply, their idea of critical race theory is that white supremacy is so deeply embedded in our institutions that you have to have a fundamental revolution on a systemic basis Otherwise, you are supporting white supremacy. And that's the main reason, I think, why the SPLC justifies calling conservatives the infrastructure upholding white supremacy.
Do you think the SPLC is interested in racism being solved?
I don't have expertise on that particularly. I think I wish I could say that I do believe that, but I don't know.
You know, our colleague from Florida, I think, spoke very passionately, Congressman Moskowitz, about really concerning rise on anti-Semitism. And, you know, when we see these issues of hate that can manifest themselves online in the social media sphere, often with foreign actors, you know, the area that I'm really concerned about is the conspiracy theory mindset and this kind of derangement in the fever swamps of the internet that can play upon these things. And that's one of the reasons why what's happened to SPLC is so concerning, because not only does their own activities of funding these informants, so-called informants using donations to fund racism itself, but just this whole project certainly is laden with fervor for conspiracy theories. And we really do need some good think tank work, NGO work, and other work to focus on this issue across the board of fighting conspiracy theory. And so, you know, however it did happen, this jumping of the shark for SPLC really did, Southern Poverty Law Center, I think really was a detriment to society as a whole. I'll just close by saying thank you to all the panelists, but for all the good work you do, Ms. Swain, Mr. Perkins, Mr. Neal, and Ms. Wiley. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I want to thank our witnesses for being here today, for their great testimony. And I want to thank those members of the audience who were here with us for the entire hearing, particularly Leo, thank you. But we appreciate you all being here and what the committee was able to gather from your fine testimony. The witnesses are excused.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to offer in unanimous consent.
Gentlelady is recognized. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two I'd like to enter into the record. The first is
Gentlelady is recognized.
from the Center for Economic and Policy Research, January 26th, the Black jobs deficit cost Black Americans $87 billion in 2025 because of strong anti-Black bias in hiring.
No objection.
And I would like to enter to the record, June of 24, Forbes, Black Americans respond to Trump's notion of Black jobs.
No objection.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Gentlemen, the ranking member is recognized for a motion, I understand.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Pursuant to Clause 2K6 of Rule 11, I hereby move to subpoena Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, Associate Attorney General Stanley Woodward, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, IRS Chief Executive Officer Frank Bisignano, Treasury Department General Counsel Brian Morrissey to testify before the committee at a hearing on Donald Trump's nearly $1.8 billion slush fund to reward insurrectionist rioters and other alleged victims of weaponization.
Ranking member's made a
Mr.
motion.
Chairman,
Gentleman
I
from
move
California is
to lay the
recognized.
motion on the table.
Motion has been moved. There's been a motion to move and put lay the motion on the table. The motion is non-debatable. The question occurs on the motion to table. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion is
We have a
tabled.
recorded vote, please, Mr. Chairman.
Request for a recorded vote being asked for. A recorded vote is requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Jordan.
Yes.
Mr. Jordan votes yes. Mr. Issa. Mr. Biggs. Mr. McClintock. Mr. McClintock votes aye. Mr. Tiffany. Mr. Massey. Mr. Roy. Mr. Fitzgerald. Mr. Fitzgerald votes aye. Mr. Klein. Mr. Klein votes aye. Mr. Gooden. Mr. Gooden votes aye. Mr. Van Drew. Mr. Nels. Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore votes aye. Ms. Hageman. Ms. Hageman votes aye. Ms. Lee. Mr. Hunt. Mr. Fry. Mr. Kiley. Mr. Kiley votes no. Mr. Grothman. Mr. Grothman votes aye. Mr. Knott. Mr. Knott votes aye. Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris votes aye. Mr. Onder. Mr. Onder votes aye. Mr. Schmidt. Mr. Gill. Mr. Gill votes aye. Mr. Baumgartner. Mr. Baumgartner votes aye. Mr. Raskin.
No.
Mr. Ruskin votes no. Mr. Nadler? Ms. Lofgren?
No.
Ms. Lofgren votes no. Mr. Cohen? Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson votes no. Mr. Liu? Mr. Liu votes no. Ms. Jayapal? Ms. Jayapal votes no. Mr. Correa? Ms. Scanlon?
No.
Ms. Scanlon votes no. Mr. Neguse? Mr. Neguse votes no. Ms. McBath? Ms. Ross? Ms. Ross votes no. Ms. Ballant? Ms. Ballant votes no. Mr. Garcia? Ms. Kamlager-Dove?
No.
Ms. Kamlager-Dove votes no. Mr. Moskowitz? Mr. Goldman? Mr. Goldman votes no. Ms. Crockett?